Kenny BOYD head coach Don Drake joins us now after a 38-20 loss in their opening week game against Mesquite Horn. They look to rebound next week against Coppell, but let's first talk about the game against Horn. Coach, going into it, what were your expectations not only for the game but for the season for your team?
Well, I mean, I've got real high expectations for our football team. Going into the ball game, I knew Mesquite Horn was a very talented team. You know, there were obviously some areas of concern. I mean, they've got a huge offensive line, and you know, so there was a little bit of a size disadvantage there up front, which was concerning for us. But we've got a great group of kids. They're very physical. They're very tough. They play very hard. So, you know, felt good about our football team headed into Friday night's game. You know, and then looking back after the game's over, still feel the same way. I mean, our kids battled. I thought they competed. Thought there were a handful of plays that you know, if we make them instead of Horn making them, the outcome may have been different, you know, than what it was. But, you know, our kids feel good about where they are. You know, obviously playing a quality opponent like that early in the season gives you some indications of things that you need to work on, you know, that you need to get fixed in order to improve. And so that's our approach. That's our mentality to it. And every week we just got to keep working harder and keep getting better. And you know, the wins are going to take care of themselves.
Yeah, and you talk about the scheduling of a bunch of quality opponents, which you have early on and in district play. Talk about some more about the benefits of those rather than scheduling some easy teams that you would get some wins in early in the season.
Well, I think that, you know, if you walk out and you schedule a lighter opponent and you go play well and you win by 28, 35 points, whatever, I mean, human nature would tell you that I'm not going to focus a whole lot on the areas that I need to improve because I got the victory and I feel real good about myself, right? You know, I think when you schedule a quality opponent like Horn, even though you may not walk away victorious, it obviously opens your eyes to some areas that you need to address so that you can improve your team to get ready for district play. I mean, we know that in our district, the quality of football teams that are going to exist there. So I think it's important for our guys to have to play at that level now, early in the season, so that in order to prepare ourselves for that later on.
Let's talk about the game, and you open up very strong in the game. You get a nice 4th and 6 stop against Horn when they're driving in your territory, and then you go right back and score a big touchdown. Yeah,
we did. You know, we had a great run there and went up 7-0, and I thought at that point, you know, defensively for us, I mean, they had moved the ball, but we had forced them to have to really execute their offense in order to do that. You know, they went for it on 4th down several times the other night in the ball game. Early in the football game, we got those stops that we needed. We were able to put the ball in the end zone, take the lead. Felt really, really good about where we were at that point. You know, I think one of the keys to the game for us was after we kicked off, after we scored, we kicked off and we gave up a 70-yard return to the kid down to our 30. And so at that point now your defense is in that position where you know, it's much easier to score from the 30-yard line than starting on your own 25, you know, which we had done earlier in the game. So, you know, that was a huge mistake on our part. You know, we've got to be better in our kickoff coverage than we were at that particular time because we can't put our defense in that situation when they're on a short field. So I think that was a huge key. A little bit in the second quarter, we had a 4th and 2 after we had put a nice drive together. We don't convert on that, don't come away with any points, which again I think was huge at that point because it was 7-7 at the ball game. You know, we have an opportunity to be in position to go score points, and we don't, which would have given us the lead again. So, you know, there was some tough things there. Like I said before, that you know, a handful of plays in that first half that I think the game very easily could have been 7-7 at halftime versus being 21-7 at halftime.
Let's talk about your running back, Driscoll. He's a real veteran of the team. He's played for a couple of seasons on varsity now, coming off a really strong season last year. Mm-hmm. Can he just better that performance that he had last year where he ran for over 2,000 yards? You feel that way this year?
Well, I think he's very capable of the same kind of performances, you know. Now, I think, too, that you have to understand that, you know, Brian the other night, I think, rushed 19 times for 115 yards, 120 yards. So, you know, he's right at that 5 to 6 yard per carry average, which is pretty good for a running back, you know. I think people look at that statistically and go, well, I mean, what's wrong with Brian? I mean, Brian didn't have 200-something yards rushing. Well, I mean, you gotta consider. I mean, we're playing some very, very good football teams. You know, there's not many backs that are gonna rush for those kind of yards against those kind of football teams. So, it's not a reflection of Brian by any means. He's a very, very talented kid, as you saw the other night. I mean, he was very explosive in that first score and made some other nice runs as well. And his second touchdown run was a pretty amazing run. So great kid, and yeah, I fully expect him to have the same kind of year. Now, is it going to be a 2,000-yard rushing year? I don't know. We'll see, right? But, I mean, that's so hard to tell right now. But with his first performance the other night, I wasn't displeased in any way.
Yeah, the stats can sometimes be misleading when you factor in the quality of opponents that you're playing. Horn had a really strong defense. Early on, you had a lot of back and forth, some punts in the game where there really wasn't an offense that was really ticking out touchdowns, left and right.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's a real back and forth game, which was what you would expect, when you line up with two pretty good football teams going at each other. So, like I said, I mean, late in the second quarter, we had them in fourth down a couple of times, and we've got kids in position to make the play, and the Horn kid makes it, and ours doesn't, and it's unfortunate, but it led to 2 scores to give them that 21-7 halftime lead. We make those plays, and it's a 7-7 ball game. So, when you look at a score and you look at statistics, that's kind of the part that's hard to realize if you're not there at the game, you're not watching the game, or you don't have the luxury of going back and reviewing the film and seeing it. I thought our kids played very well overall. We just had a couple of unfortunate circumstances there where they made some plays and we didn't, and it turned out to be the difference in the game.
Also, a lot of times when Horn scored their touchdowns in the game, they just happened to score at the perfect time. They scored 13 seconds before the end of the half to take that 21-7 lead. What does that do to your team going into the locker room? How do you try to get them to regroup after giving up a late score in the half?
Well, I mean, it definitely can be a deflator emotionally for the kids, but I think you got to go in and you got to focus not just on that one play. You have to focus on the performance of the whole half, and so that's the things that we highlight is, hey, this is what we're doing, and guys, we've been playing pretty well, okay? Yeah, we've got that one play that we're not happy about, or it's pretty unfortunate, but overall we've played pretty well. So just stay the course, keep playing, keep competing, and things are going to be okay. I told our offense when we went at halftime. So guys, I mean, our own mistakes and miscues have kept us from moving the football as effectively as we want to. Get those things fixed, and it'll take care of it. First drive of the second half, go right down the field, score to cut the lead to 7. So, felt like that our kids really did some good things Friday night. I know the score is not very indicative of that, but when you go back and review the whole game and the whole tape, you take away a handful of plays, and I think it's a fourth quarter game.
Yeah, your defense kept your team in the ball game. You are down 31-14 in the fourth quarter, and you get a big touchdown pass from your quarterback. What sort of momentum did that appear to spark at the time?
Well, I think it definitely helped. The thing I'm most proud of is the fact that our kids kept fighting. I mean, you're down at that point, 31-14. I mean, you could throw in the towel if you want to, but we put a drive together. We get a big scoring opportunity to Kevin McCormick on the touchdown pass from Curtis Ladd, and it gives you hope. It inspires the kids. And most importantly, I think it's a reflection of our kids' attitude and approach toward the game. We're going to keep competing. We're going to keep playing. We're going to fight to the finish, which I think our kids do, and that makes me very proud as a coach.
And one thing that really went in Mesquite Horn's favor, as it did on their last drive that they ended up scoring a touchdown to put you away in the fourth quarter, is they converted so many fourth downs on their drives. And usually, as a defense, you only ask your team to stop them for 3 downs and then they punt. How much of an effect was those fourth down conversions on your defense in this game?
Well, I think it was huge, and early on in the game, we got those stops, and then later in the second half, it got to be a lot tougher, obviously. We talked about the size that they had in the offensive line, and so, when you're sitting there at 4th and 2 and you've got a 300-pound right guard that's coming off on, our 215-pound nose guard, I mean, there's a big mismatch there, and so it's pretty tough to stop them for less than a 2-yard gain, in those situations. But like I said, I think our kids battled. I think they competed. I think they made Horn have to execute their offense in order to be able to effectively move the ball. And Horn did a great job in terms of their execution. They didn't have very many penalties. They didn't turn the football over at all. So offensively, I thought they played a pretty complete football game. And I think with all of that being said, I think our defense played extremely well in terms of making them really have to work to earn what they got.
How frustrating is it as a coach when a team gambles like that on 4th and lawns and rolls the dice and they just get so many conversions?
Well, I mean, I think that's part of the game. You know, you got to make the play. You know, and so you make it, you get the stop, you get the ball back. You don't, they're gonna keep the ball in their hands. It can be deflating to a team, you know, but that goes back to our kids, though. I mean, our kids just kept battling, kept competing, kept fighting, and get them in 4th down again, right? I mean, I think if our team were deflated by all of that, then what you'd see is a 4th down conversion, and you'd see huge gains after that, you know, and that didn't happen the other night. I mean, we made them consistently work to have to move those chains, which is a good thing for our defense.
Now, this game was a good prep for next week's game. You're going to play Coppell, 41-8 winners over Longview in the Tom Landry Classic. When they beat a team like Longview that has such tradition, such a good team, does that ever wear on the kids mentally going into the game, knowing that they're playing an opponent that just, you know, dominated a good opponent of their own?
Well, our kids, I don't think our kids worry about that a whole lot. Okay, we've played some really good football teams over the last several years, and so I don't worry about the whole intimidation factor. I don't worry about the whole, you know, our kids are going to get psyched out because Coppell beat Longview 41-8. I don't worry about those things. Our kids are going to line up and they're going to compete and they're going to play ball. Now the question will be, are we going to make enough positive plays on our part to make sure that the outcome is in our favor? I mean, that's the key. So they're not worried. I mean, they've seen the score. They've heard us talk about it. They've already seen the film. Our kids will be ready Friday night to go line up against Coppell and compete. And we take it from an approach of, hey, we're getting to play a really good football team Friday night, and we need to go out and play well and go get the victory. And then what does that say about us, right? So
right.
That's our mental approach, not the whole I'm defeated before I get there.
Well, Coach, thanks so much for joining us. And it certainly seems like your team, after making the playoffs last year, they have the confidence to be able to go against Coppell next week on the road and possibly pull off a big victory. That'll be the BOYD Broncos next week against Coppell. That does it for this episode of Sports Talk. We want to once again thank the coaches for stopping by to talk about their respective football teams. McKinney High hosts Frisco Heritage on Thursday at Ron Post Stadium in their home opener. North will also play their first game at home on Friday versus Prosper. And BOYD travels to Coppell in what should be a great test for the Broncos. We'll talk about those games next week. Until then, I'm Tyler Sloan. This is Sports Talk.